Hello, everybody.
Hello, good afternoon. It is 4:31 and I'll call the meeting to order. So for a roll call, we have Nancy Bowden, Bob Dickinson, Claudia Guardiak, and Dave Hager here from the committee. Am I missing anyone? Okay, and myself, yeah, Paula Jones. So we have a quorum. And in terms of guest, we have Counselor Joe Merritt on the line right now, and I'd like to welcome Kevin Costello from CTEC Solar.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
For having me today.
Yep. And so we'll get into old business in a moment, and we can probably feed between the town planner's report and Solar in Bloomfield, Mr. Costello's reason for being here. And so before we get into that, in terms of approval of the agenda, under new business, there is an other category. A question came in to Nancy Bowden about what was happening at 1236 Blue Hills Avenue. There's a cease and desist order there. So I want to sort of address that, talk about that under that category of new business, just to get an understanding of the situation more the process for when there is a cease and desist order. So there's that, and there's some other things that we'll talk about in terms of solar under new business, but a little bit later in the agenda. And I think that's about it in terms of kind of the agenda. Okay. So everyone good with that in terms of approving the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Could I go ahead. Okay. And in terms of guest, Brenda Watson is online. Brenda, after she does the paperwork, presumably after this evening, will be our newest member to CEEC. So she's on the consent agenda for tonight to be added. Okay. Welcome, Brenda. And let's see. So can I, in terms of next agenda item, July 10th meeting minutes, can I have a motion? Yep. Is there a second? Okay, so a motion by Nancy Bowden and a second by Claudia. Any discussion? Corrections? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Okay, town planners report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to all. I think three things that are of interest. Well, lots of things are of interest, but of significant. One, we have offered and the individual has accepted the position of environmental planner. And we anticipate and hope that that individual will be on board hopefully by the end of the month, if not by early October. The individual is processing with their present employer, and once that's done, but that individual has passed all of the physical and other requirements that need to be taken. So we're and has accepted the offer. I'm not sure that they have informed their employer yet.
Okay, great.
That process is taking place.
Okay.
Secondly, on the plan of conservation and development, as some of you may or may not heard if you've watched the TPZ meeting, subsequent to the public hearing, myself and my predecessor, Justin LaFontaine, reviewed all of the comments and recommendations that we had received from this board, from individuals and other commissions and boards. And not surprisingly, we found them to be significant and very important and substantial. And based on that, I recommended to the planning commission that it would be that prior to finalizing and sending the document out for review by the council and ultimate approval by the TPZ, that it needed a significant rewrite. And that rewrite would primarily be conducted by Justin and myself. And that's going to take a little time because both of us obviously have other work requirements. And I have requested, and actually is on the town council agenda this evening, $20,000 to retain for about 6 weeks the services of Goldman and York, primarily Justin, to do about 100 hours of work with me and Linda to reflect properly the comments and conditions we received. I think he has a 6 o'clock meeting. And produce a document that reflects the vision and ideas of this community. So we hopefully will get approval by the council this evening and move on to that.
Okay.
The town center plan, as I think I informed you, I'm not sure, we submitted the CIF grant for $23+ million to state DECD, and we are still awaiting action by them. It's my understanding that the approval board does not have a meeting scheduled this month, and so it may not be till next month that we receive information on that. Other than that, we're really busy on variety of things. The Arbella proposal is awaiting a decision by the council on its tax agreement request. Finally, we welcome Solar here today. They made a presentation to the TPZ, and the TPZ felt it would really be appropriate for them to make a presentation to you all, see how you felt before we begin to develop the regulations themselves.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Coleman?
What should you say for the town center plan thing? I missed the amount.
23 million.
Yep.
Give or take, that's a number. That's not the exact number, but that's the number I use.
Yep. Okay, any other questions in the room?
It is, but that's actually less than the going rate.
Should be, given all they've done already. Or not done.
Anyway, okay.
Don't know.
No, let me just, this is not deja vu all over again, as Yogi would say. When we retained them the first time, that was basically to get the document that was in basic unusable shape
Right.
into usable shape and to correct a lot of the inconsistencies. This effort is now to respond to all of the comments and reviews that have been made by the TPZ, this body and other bodies about what was in there. And we found those to be substantial and significant. And it would have been, in my opinion, a disservice to move forward with the document as is. And it's simply, if we want to get it done in a reasonable period of time, it just is not something that the staff can do on its own.
Okay, online, Val Rossetti, another guest, has her hand up. Hello, Val.
Oh, hi, Mr. Coleman. Can you give us a sense of the flavor of the, when you say significant and substantial, like maybe just several of the areas that you think need to be revised? I'm glad that you're looking so carefully at the comments.
The executive summary, efforts on farmland, a lot of significant inconsistencies in the various sections, future land use recommendations and things of that type. Some of the postulations that are in there about population growth and and development growth and connections there too. And some, what would I use the correct word, omissions in terms of issues that are important to the community, related particularly to issues that this body deals with in terms of conservation and solar and things of that type. It just is, it's in its present form, it's a document that we believe is not Bloomfield centric. It has a lot of boilerplate and quite frankly, if some of us had our druthers, we would simply resurrect the 2012 plan and use that. And I think that Justin and I are certainly going to use that as a guide as we go forward and make that, obviously we'll use the format that exists now, but a more modern document. But that document is much more of a plan and a vision and a guide than the present one, and not reflective of a lot of issues that are important to the town of Bloomfield.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Yep, it is good. Thank you very much. Okay, anything else? All right, let's move ahead to old business. We'll move to solar in Bloomfield. That is why Mr. Costello is here. And I also want to introduce Valerie Rossetti. Kevin and I were talking before the meeting started about the fact that CEEC had kind of first visited solar and solar siting in Bloomfield kind of broadly, like in late 2020, early 2021. I was on CEC at that point, but not chairing, and Val was not chairing either, but Val was really kind of carrying the water, so to speak, and doing a lot, I think along with David, on kind of solar and representing CEC. So I thought it would be helpful to plumb Val's memory a little bit, because I thought that would help the conversation. Okay, so without further ado, Mr. Costello, if you'd like to just kind of give a brief introduction. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you for all the folks here today who have allowed us to come in and speak to you on behalf of CTEC and myself. I am going to try to share my screen here so we can get the presentation started. I usually use Teams, so I'm not as dexterous on Zoom as I would like to be, so you'll have to forgive me.
There you go.
All right, and I'm just going to, thank you. It's better than I expected. Just gonna go to start presentation. Okay. There we go. Very good. So this is the proposed Wintonberry Avenue solar project. And I'm going to go, I apologize for the folks who in P&Z who have seen this information already, but I wanted to just make sure everybody was on the same page. So I'm going to just do a brief overview of the project. This is not the project. Some of you may know CTEC. We've been in Bloomfield since the company started about 20 years ago. We did the very first in the state of Connecticut solar farm project through the former LREC-ZREC program. And this is right over at the Bloomfield Board of Education. So we've done projects in town before. We're familiar. I think everybody has experience with my company, and I hope it's good. I personally have been with CTEC for a little over a year now, and I've had nothing but a great experience, nothing but kind things to say about Mickey, the owner of the company, and the whole rest of the team. I've been very blessed to have such a wonderful opportunity, and I'm very happy with where I am with them. In terms of the proposed project, this would be for what we describe as, well, at least personally, I would describe as a small solar farm project. Its proposed capacity is just going to be just shy of 1 megawatt, 0.99 megawatts to be exact. But this would be in support of Connecticut's sustainability and clean energy goals, and also helps to reduce carbon emissions and energy costs. The proposed location is going to be at 141 Wintonberry Avenue. The total parcel size, I have in the below image, it's going to be just shy of 19 acres, just a little bit over. Our system size, including the panels, the transformer, the access road, just about everything, it's going to be a little over 6 acres in size. So we're using about a third of the entire parcel's coverage. And this site was primarily chosen for its very positive grid capacity interconnection outlook that we got from Eversource. In the state of Connecticut, the biggest thing that allows these projects, solar farm projects, to either happen or not happen is having grid capacity. So what we're doing is, unlike large utility scale projects where we're utilizing the large high tension lines that run all throughout the state, looks like huge chunks of land are just carved through and those lines go through all out and bring power everywhere. We're actually utilizing what's called the distribution lines. And these are the lines that you see right out here on your street, your everyday single phase, 3-phase power lines. We of course need 3-phase, but what makes this site so special is we're actually in year 6 of a 7-year program that replaced the LREC, ZREC program. It's called NRES, Non-Residential Energy Solutions, and that's administered by both Eversource and UI. We're sort of at the end of the run with that, and as you can imagine, there's been a great deal of projects that have taken place over the past couple of years, and we are at a point now where finding locations that have grid capacity are becoming very difficult. And what's great about Wintonberry Avenue and this specific part of it is we have 5 megawatts of capacity to work with, which is it's just increasingly rare. There's very few parts of the state that have that level of capacity left. So that's why this was initially chosen. The other reason for choosing this site was many, many years ago, this was originally supposed to have been a farm. The site is owned by Seabury Living, who are the large active life community that's just down the street. And I think what had happened, I can't speculate too far, but at one point they had an agreement with a farming company or a farmer. It was supposed to be a farm. It didn't work out for whatever reason. He went to a different property, and what was cleared land has slowly over the years kind of been reclaimed by nature. So this project is essentially going to serve a couple different purposes. One is to provide solar, which is going to help the state's goals. Another is that it's going to, hopefully, and our plan is to really mitigate a lot of the invasive species that have been found on site. So it's going to be another helpful thing that the property owners can look forward to in the future, and the town can look forward to is, yes, we would be doing some tree cutting. There would be some wetlands mitigation taking place both on site and off site, and we're in discussions with the town about that currently. But there are a lot of benefits to this project that might not be immediately visible, and just wanted to make sure I highlighted those issues. And this, as I stated before, would participate in Eversource's NRES program, which is currently sunsetting in 2027. Just a quick little recap on NRES. It's designed for projects up to 5 megawatts, so between 1 and 5, supported by both UI and Eversource, runs from 2022 to 2027, and of course is the successor program to the former LREC ZREC program. And this just gives us a couple details that we think covered previously. It's a 1 megawatt array. We're going to be using ground mounted panels, a single axis tracker for efficiency. This is the type of tracking system that allows the panels to rotate as the sun moves across the sky to be always at the highest capacity possible in terms of their production. And of course, we're integrating fencing and landscaping for visual screening concerns. And as all projects with CTEC, we're complying with all safety and zoning standards. Proposed project timeline for 2025 and 2026. That's when we're going to be working on permitting and approvals, also for final engineering and procurement. If everything goes well, we hope to begin construction in 2027 with the system. Since it is such a small system, it's not going to take a long time to actually construct this as compared to other much larger arrays. So we expect 2027 would also be the year that we begin operation. for a total duration of around 12 to 15 months from approval until we're energized. And for the reason that we are here today, we wanted to propose a text amendment or just a baseline text for the town of Bloomfield to be able to define what a large-scale solar project is and how those type of projects could fit in potentially with the town's zoning standards and find a pathway forward that would work best for the town of Bloomfield as they begin to get more offers to work on these type of projects as new technology comes in, whether it's battery energy storage or data centers. We wanted to have a baseline for discussion so we could potentially proceed with this project. I seem to have a little issue here with my slide. Something got squished here. So sorry about that. So we aim to define a solar power installation that's over 250 kW as a large-scale energy system. And we would want these to be compliant with all local ordinances. The construction and operation of any large-scale energy system shall be consistent with all applicable local, state, and federal requirements, including but not limited to applicable safety, construction, electrical, and communications requirements. So that's something we thought would be an important place to start off, was actually defining what this project was, what these type of projects were, to give a comparison to much larger projects, which you could consider to be utility scale, that utilize transmission lines as opposed to simple DG lines. So it is important to make that distinction, at least in our opinion. And going forward with some of the proposed text amendment changes, we would want to include a building permit and building inspection so that no large-scale solar energy system shall be constructed, installed, or modified as provided in this section without first obtaining a building permit from the town. This would also include a site plan review, and all plans, maps shall be prepared, stamped, and signed by a professional engineer licensed to practice in Connecticut. And that's very standard on all these projects. We do that with Eversource now. So it's very likely that anyone proposing this type of project would have that information by that time already, I would think. Required documents. So we would need to get what we would propose is the proponent would have blueprints or drawings of the large-scale solar energy system, once again signed by a professional engineer. A manufacturer's data sheet, contact information, including name, address, phone number, email, anything that's required for the actual system installer. The same thing for any of the property owners if they are going to be different than the system installer. So for situations where it might be a site lease, we would also need to get the information for whoever the landowner is going to be. And of course, with any agents representing the project, zoning district designation for the parcels, proof of liability insurance, and then of course, it's always important to include that the board may waive documentary requirements that it finds are unnecessary to determine compliance with these regulations or as it deems appropriate. Another one of the requirements would be to have site control. The project proponent shall submit documentation of actual or prospective access or control of the project site sufficient to follow construction and operation of the solar array. So that's basically having proof that you have an agreement with the landowner, whether that's going to be a lease or an option agreement or a combination thereof, just something that says that there is an agreement in place, it's not fictitious, and that could be referenced, of course, when the project is submitted for approval. Another thing that's very standard, an operation and maintenance plan. So as these projects are going to be in existence for at least 20 years, because that is the amount of time that our company or a different company is going to have with the utility company to produce the power, that's standard all across the state. That comes from both Eversource and UI for the NRES program. So it's always going to be a 20-year agreement that a solar installer or a system owner is going to enter into with the utility company, but they can often go for much longer than that, sometimes up to 40 years, depending on the nature of the agreement. So it's good to have a operation and maintenance plan that's going to, show what the plan is for that entire duration of the contract. Utility notification. So this is basically saying that no large-scale energy system shall be constructed until evidence has been provided to the board that the utility company that operates the electrical grid where the project would be taking place has been notified. And typically this comes in the form of an interconnection application. And that's usually the first step that a developer will take when they're planning out a project is they'll have a site that's in mind. They'll be able to identify the feeder that is that they want to use for that project. And then they'll send in an interconnection application to either Eversource or UI. And that what that does is it tells the utility company that we're thinking about doing a project here. And they give us a very high level overview of what upgrades might be necessary, if it's going to be a feeder upgrade or a substation upgrade, anything that has to do with that. So that's usually good enough proof that a project has made it to that point in the interconnection timeline. And these are the dimension and density requirements and basically setbacks that we've come up with. And these aren't coming directly from us. We've done some research, looked at other towns that do have solar ordinances already in play from already having solar farms being developed in their town for a number of years. And we pulled much of this from the town of Voluntown. And then we also went through and took a look through the town of Bloomfield's different zoning requirements that they would see in, for example, an R20, an R30 zone, a light industrial zone, a commercial zone, and took a look at what those setbacks were and saw how many, if any of them, would be in compliance with the system and based our setbacks around what the town was currently using. And I think we are above and beyond in many cases what is currently being asked for in residential zones. So essentially, it gives us a front yard, a side yard, a rear yard, a minimum lot size, and then a height of the structures. And by height of the structures, we mean, since these are ground mount systems, this would be the height of the solar panels, their maximum height above the ground, including any mounting equipment, things of that nature. So in the front yard, it would need to be at least a 10-foot depth unless we're in a situation where we viewed a residential district, in which case the minimum would then be 50. Same thing with the side yard, starts off at 25, but if, once again, we're in a residential zone or abutting a residential zone, jumps to 50. Same with the rear. Minimum lot size to do a project like this, we thought the minimum lot size for any large-scale solar energy system as we've defined it should be 7 acres. A good rule of thumb is, at least in my experience, is you need around 5 acres to do a 1 megawatt project. And that's just with the solar. So when you take into account things like access roads and how far we might need to go to the road, that's I think a good number to use. And then the total height, we did our calculations and think that 10 feet is a very reasonable number to be within, depending on if you're going to do a single axis tracker or a fixed tilt system. And that's pretty much it. That's we wanted to just give a very simple draft for the town to be able to digest, collaborate with us on, to basically just give us a starting point. I mean, once again, my references for this were Town of Voluntown Solar Ordinances of 2024, and then the Town of Bloomfield Zoning Regulations 4.3B, and then I also included these 2 pictures in case we actually wanted to look at the setbacks in real time. So this one comes from a general industrial zone, and we also have the residential zoning setback requirements here. And as we can see, we are from the front, this project would be abutting a residential district. So we are currently looking at 50 feet. What we proposed was 50 feet. Side yard actually here is 25. We increased that to 50, same for the rear. And then we're well below the 35 feet height requirements. Do I know this is a lot different because we're comparing houses to solar arrays, but since there wasn't something currently to give us a good baseline, that's sort of what we used. And it was very consistent with what Voluntown had in their current ordinances, and we included a link to that in case the town wants to go back and check through that. And that's all I had for today.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the overview. I think where I'd like to start is just ask Mr. Coleman. You know, I heard about this not too long ago in terms of the suggestion that you come to CEC and talk to us about it. What is happening next in terms of TPZ? It looks like the anticipation is there will be a public hearing on it. And then I do want to open it up for questions, obviously, and comments.
I wouldn't say we're at the public hearing point yet.
Yeah.
We have to, staff needs to, and we may have to bring in legal if necessary, but probably not. Take a good hard look at this recommendations. We haven't really scrutinized them.
Yeah.
See how they sync with our regulations as they are now to make sure that there's not conflicts and or confusion that we don't want to exist in terms of tables and that type. And then present it to the commission, who would then schedule a public hearing to be held. So I would, if it gets submitted at the September meeting, the public hearing would not be until the October meeting.
Okay.
At the earliest.
Okay, so at this point, I want to open it up to questions and comments. We'll start in the room. I also want to make sure anybody online has the opportunity as well. So
Before you do, I think
Yeah.
also the commission is going to have its conversation on whether in fact they want to permit it in the first place.
okay, and
That's the first step.
right,
And if they think it's an appropriate use at particular locations in town, then we'll move ahead with the regulations.
right. Okay, that's good. And I just want to, I mean, I'll say one other thing and then we'll open it up. I had intended, before this really even came up, to have sort of a discussion about our solar ordinances, because this has been sort of an ongoing item related to the POCD. And to the extent, it was more of an opportunity to just kind of review everything we have. One thing that was not part of the meeting package was the larger scale utility policy, which is hard to find online. Town policy, the town council passed it. And I had mentioned this to Mr. Costello. That was more of a, the point of that was to more express the town's preferences in terms of where, you know, what locations we think are suitable, and what kinds of things we're looking at in terms of post-project, that kind of thing. So that particular policy we updated this year, and we added the to incorporate BESS, battery energy storage systems. And that, again, we all looked at that and made some changes because there were 3 of those proposed for town. So I think it's important, I guess, when all of this is being considered, to look at that and to look at the desires of the town and of the various commissions that kind of develop that policy to recommend to council in terms of citing and everything else. And this may be completely appropriate, but it's more of a, we've got those documents to look at. So, so I'll stop with that for now. Okay, let's see. Well, actually, I'll start in the room and then I will go online. Okay, hang on, Zelene. So I'll be with you. And actually, Zelene is here, so that's good. Thank you, Zelene. Hang on. Okay, anyone in the room want to ask a question or make a comment?
Oh, the parcel is currently owned by Seabury Living.
Seabury.
Seabury.
So it's part of Seabury.
Part of their land holdings, yes.
Their land home. So has.
It's across the, David, it's across the street. On the, it's on the same side as the Samuel Park.
But it's not part of the
Just
park.
wait.
It's not part of the park.
We can't hear you.
It's not part of the park, but the town does own an abutting parcel immediately to the north.
And has that been farmed?
Not,
Yeah.
it has not.
Okay, wait, just Bob.
We,
Just wait.
we tried. Tried to work with the farmer, but it didn't work.
I thought the Liupas were actually farming some of it.
This is on the back side of that.
Not this parcel.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, other questions or comments in the room before I go online? Okay, Claudia.
I understand you're using Voluntown as a sort of semi-similar situation to Bloomfield, or tell me a little bit more about how it keeps coming up as a prototype, so to speak.
Oh, we did, so it's funny, not every town has solar ordinances. So we had to do a little bit of research to find out where there's been a number of projects that have taken place over the past couple of years, whether that's been through this program, through the former LREC-ZREC program, which is how we did the Board of Ed building. So we tried to narrow that down to a place where we knew had solar projects, and there were quite a few that were done up there. So luckily we looked online and they had a pretty good amount of regulations and ordinances that we thought would serve as a good baseline to start the discussion of. We wanted to find a town that was, I don't think Voluntown is a mirror image of Bloomfield, but we didn't want to use a town or a city like Danbury or Bridgeport, which is much more industrial. We wanted to try to find something that was close as an apples to apples comparison in terms of geography, in terms of, is there a lot of farming already taking place there? There's much more than that of that taking place in Voluntown, of course. So we thought that if it works for them, and considering that they have a lot of very valuable land, a lot of very beautiful scenic land out there, we thought it was just a good place to start. If it would work for Voluntown, and considering all the land that they have, why not here as well, or at least as a starting off point, so to say.
Thank you.
Sure.
You have a question?
I guess
Yep.
a comment that, okay, it's not being used for farmland now. After this project, after 20 years of this project, it could be a consideration again. That
I can't,
otherwise not building on it now and having solar, and at the end of 20 years, it could be restored to farmland.
I can't speak on behalf of Seabury for what their plans might be in the future, but I can tell you that now they do actively, throughout their other land holdings, rent to farmers, and I can see them very easily continuing with that trend at the end of the 20 years. And what would be helpful at this parcel is then after the end of the solar period, you have a parcel with cleared out. It's very easy for a farmer to come in there and then begin doing whatever
I mean,
activities.
right now, they're just paying taxes on it, and,
Sure,
they want to do something with it.
correct.
Okay. Let's go online. I'm going to start with Zeline and then go across the top of the screen. So Zeline,
Okay.
Val, and then Councilor Merritt. Go ahead, Zeline.
Well, I'm just wondering if any environmental studies have been done, or will they be done on this land? Have they been done? It's hard for me to hear you guys. I want you to know.
I'm so sorry, Zeline. Can you hear me if I speak loud now?
It's a little better, yeah.
Okay, so to answer your question, yes, we have begun that process with the Town Inland and Wetlands Commission. We have already completed or are in the process of, we've done one wetlands delineation report. There are wetlands that are on site that would be affected, and we are working with the Inlands and Wetlands Department on potential solutions to that, including on-site and off-site mitigation.
What do you mean by off-site mitigation?
Well, in certain circumstances, when you have a situation like this where there's wetlands on a parcel, but we can't necessarily mitigate that on site due to the parcel being rather small and not there not being a lot of areas where we can do on-site mitigation. One thing that you can do is consider off-site mitigation. So that would be us working with a different landowner, whether that's a conservation firm or a nonprofit, or even maybe the town itself, and looking at other parcels where we could essentially add wetlands somewhere else to make up for the wetlands that we're taking up.
Well, I don't think that's a really great solution in general, because what exists on this particular plot may not be appropriate for another wetland. One wetland is not like another. That's what I'm saying. So I think that off-site mitigation, excuse me, is not really an answer. I don't know about this parcel. I know where it is. And I don't know how many acres of that is actually wetland. I would like to know, and I would like to see the results of any environmental studies that are done.
Absolutely. We would be more than happy to share all of that information with anybody from the town. We have all that available now. So if it's helpful, I can get that sent out at the end of the day or early tomorrow. But to answer your question as best as I can without having it in front of me at this point, there are some areas that would be affected. But we, as a company, we would much prefer taking credit to what you just said. We would much prefer to keep the on-site to keep the mitigation to on-site wherever possible. But we understand that even if that isn't possible, we're going to go above and beyond to work with the town, to work with wetland scientists, to make sure that if we do have to do it off-site, it's going to be as best of a fit as possible. And one of the hidden benefits to us doing this on this particular project is what was found during that wetlands delineation report is that there were a large number of invasive species that were found on the parcel. So by us doing this, we would be able to remove the vast majority, if not all of those, and stop that issue early on in its stages.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I mean, are you all set, Zeline? For now,
Yeah, I'd
or?
just like to see that,
Yeah.
the
Sure,
report when it comes in. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
I'm good.
okay, thank you. Valerie, yeah.
Yeah, hi, thank you. And I'm trying to refresh my memory because, yeah, back in 2020, 21, the issue of solar regulations came up. And it was kind of tabled to my knowledge. No action that I'm aware of was definitely taken. One of the concerns, and I have a few questions for you. I know one of the concerns was just making this basically saying, any 250 megawatt thing is open on any property in Bloomfield, other than requiring a special permit. And I think we've had some experience with special permits, and I'm not sure that, how much of a safeguard that is for residential properties when somebody might, unexpectedly have a 5-acre solar project in their backyard, even if it's set back 50 feet or whatever. So when I looked at the map, this will directly abut Samuel Weed Wheeler Park. Is that true? And so, I mean, that's a beautiful sight line to the ridge. And I'm just wondering, in your diagram, you didn't really show what it would look like next to the park. So that was one question. The second question I had was, you mentioned it was just shy of 1 megawatt. Is that to avoid having the siting council involved with the state?
No, it's more for monetization purposes. So Eversource splits projects into 3 categories: small, medium, and large, and they pay a
Okay.
different amount of money depending on what that project size is. So it's more advantageous if you are a 1 megawatt size project to go down to 0.99 and be in the previous category than go above a megawatt and be in the larger category.
Okay. So, because you mentioned that this this acreage could technically support a lot more megawatts. Is that correct? I'm just wondering why Seabury
Yes,
wouldn't sign up for that. I don't know what the financial
sure.
agreement would be, how much profit they would be making off. I assume there's some kind of lease that I don't quite understand the financial aspects of this. They get money from leasing the property to CTEC. Is that what happens?
That is correct. That is the general nature of the agreement. It's a site lease, so CTEC is leasing their land for a period of 20 years, which is the same amount of time that we have an agreement with Eversource for to buy the power back. But I'm glad you asked that question. Why are we not taking up the entire 19 acres? We could. There's 5 megawatts worth of power on that line, and I think that any other developer would, and I'm not gilding the lily here. I think any other developer would have tried to do that. But we are from Bloomfield. We recognize that we do not want to build a 3 megawatt project right in people's backyards. And we worked with Seabury hand in hand. This went back and forth quite a few times because we thought that it would be way better to propose a project that could work for as many people as possible than one that's just going to come in and build as large as possible, be right up against people's back doors, right in their backyards. We don't want to do a project like that. And we specifically designed it so that we were as far away from any residences as possible. Specifically designed the inverters and the pads to be as far away from them to avoid any disruptions. So I'm actually pretty proud of that. I am grateful and happy to work for a company like CTEC that takes that kind of stuff into consideration because it's hard not to. It really is when you have a piece of land that is very buildable, and this one is, and you have the power that's available to you at the street, which this one does. We could have done a larger project, but we chose to keep it as small as possible, not only out of respect for the town and to actually credit to what you were saying earlier, we didn't really want to have to go to the siting council because it's kind of not for nothing. It's kind of rude, to go outside of the town's purview to build inside. So we wanted this to be Bloomfield's decision, not the siting council's decision. So we kept it to the size that it is now, essentially, and wanted to work with you guys on this.
Well, thanks for that information. I guess I don't know what it would visually look like next to Samuel Reed Wheeler Park. And I think overall, one of the issues with for example, using Voluntown as the solar regulation, quote unquote, ideal is having been down in Voluntown, it's kind of a different, it doesn't have anywhere near the residential density of Bloomfield. And I'm just wondering whether there's a way to consider this project without changing the permits to basically allow this in any area of Bloomfield, subject to a special permit. That feels like the object several years ago was to let the town kind of look at properties that they thought would be really well suited for these larger solar projects and work backwards from that rather than get a hodgepodge. So I'm just wondering whether, we like CTEC. I mean, we've worked with you guys on, we've done some of the solar projects. I just don't know whether changing the regulations to allow it anywhere in order to accomplish this project is concerning to me without looking further. But thanks for the information.
Thank you. Absolutely. I hear what you're saying. We wanted to propose this, as I said earlier, just as a baseline, somewhere to start. Voluntown had regulations in place, which is why we thought it would serve as just a good starting place. But I totally hear what you're saying. I respect that. One of the things that we wouldn't want to see happen in Bloomfield is just to allow for unfettered development across any different zoning, any different parcel. So no, I hear what you're saying on that.
Yeah.
And sorry for taking up so much time. I do think I don't know if like West Hartford or some of the other less rural towns have solar regulations. And the last thing I'll say before I stop is I seem to remember some issues around the whole concept of redeveloping used solar fields into farmland, and that was not as easy as one would think. And I can't quite remember, right now, having come to this just this afternoon, whether, what the issues there are, but maybe somebody else knows.
Yeah, actually, I'll just jump in very quickly more to just.
Thank you
put a-
very much.
Put a check mark next to that. Um, that's a question, I guess, in terms of post-project kind of land restoration in terms of the soils. I serve on another environmental board with a woman by the name of Denise Savageau, who has a lot of expertise in soils. She works with a lot of conservation districts and I think maybe chairs the statewide. And that's one thing that she is very knowledgeable about, and it may be helpful just in terms of trying to get some input from her. Because I think everybody just views it as land banking. And I think there are always concerns about compaction of the soil and really how usable the land is. So it's just a question I think that we need answers to. So thank you for that. Councilor Mira, your hand is up
Yes.
next. And then
Can you
Mr.
hear me?
Yes, and then Mr. Jones, you're next. And then I'm going to try to keep it to about 10 more minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I was a director for some 15 years at Seabury, so I'm familiar with the part of land and our efforts to figure out what to do with it at that time. And it doesn't sound like it's changed much. I was curious what the name of the street, the residential street, right behind there is. That's the one I'd be most concerned about. How close will those houses be to the solar panels?
It's Skinner Road, Joe.
Yeah.
So we're thinking it's Skinner Road at this point, and I can give you a good approximation. I don't want to overpromise and tell you the wrong number, but as it stands now, I would estimate that we are at least 200 feet away from the
Oh,
residences
that's
on
fine.
Skinner.
Yeah, that's perfectly
If
good.
we keep the design as it currently stands.
That's fine. I also wonder what's happening to the power coming out of there. I know over on the school site, which you put in, there was some deal where people could share in it somehow. And I'm wondering, where is the power going? Is it just going into the wires for connectivity or?
You're exactly right, actually. So this is what's called a buy all, sell all project, and it's one of the two main ways that the NRES program allows projects to participate. So what essentially happens is 100% of the power that is generated on site immediately is exported back to the grid via the distribution lines that we're hooked up to. So think of it as a mini power plant.
Okay, so it doesn't affect anybody in town. It just goes into.
At the end of the line.
Yeah. Okay.
It is not going to offset any meter. It's not going to offset any power bill. This is simply a
That's
generation.
fine. I was just curious.
Sure.
I also have to ask, does the town tax you on this? Is it?
That I don't have, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I can find that information out. I know that the state is proposing, or they may have already done it, a uniform capacity tax on solar. And I imagine that this project, as well as all the others in the coming years, are going to be subject to what that is. But we would be paying taxes to the town of Bloomfield as the lessor of the property, of course.
Okay. Well, I'm sure, being that I'm on the council, I'll hear more about this. So that's great. Thanks. I really think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Jones?
Hi, thank you for that. Much more of a comment now. It's a little belated. I want to double down on Ms. Sandler's point and questions and some of the conversation around the farm stuff. So I have an entirety of 2 meetings under my belt. So don't kill me. But this conversation around a solar project has come up, right? And it was a similar, like, deep and like pretty serious conversation around the wetlands, obviously. And I think that maybe I don't have the notes in front of me. I just want to circle back and say, as I feel like obligated in some ways, right, to say, no, yeah, like this is something that we definitely are going to pay attention to, and folks are really paying a lot of attention to at the Wetlands Commission, and maybe we can get some of the notes that came out over for folks on this committee to take a look at if y'all haven't seen them yet. Maybe get some explanations. So I just want to just name that. Because that since the wetland stuff came up and the farm stuff is very really important to us. Returning the land back potentially to farming down the road, right, still calls for like some stewardship and some other things that will be really important to us at Chicks-Ahoy Farm in Bloomfield. And how farmland is, delineated and available and protected, and how it's part of what we're going to be, not just kind of like what we've been. So I just wanted to say that, and I'll step back.
Great, thank you very much. That's great input. And to the degree Wetlands has been looking at this, any information that can be shared, that would be helpful as well. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you for that. Okay, at this point, Bob wants to say something, I think, then I want to say something quick, and then I'll close the conversation and kind of figure out next steps. Go ahead.
Yeah, two things. One, I have heard that this land and areas even across the street are marginally wetlands, partially because the soil doesn't absorb water very well. It's probably, I would imagine, in clay or whatever, but it doesn't absorb water well, and that's why some of it is wetlands. That if it was gravel or something, it might not be considered wetlands. The other is having a relatively small project like this and scattering them around the town and around the state means less need for transmission lines versus having a few big projects.
Right. And so actually at this point, I will close it out. And then I'm open to any suggestions in terms of next steps. A couple of the concerns I had or questions I had been covered, kind of post-project. Actually, one thing was just perimeter fencing. I mean, I remember with the array behind the Board of Ed, one of the things was making sure you had, you had security, but you had enough passage for animals
Oh, yes.
to
Yep.
flow through, that kind of thing. Another thing that pops into mind is we keep trying to get an agricultural zone added. Does it make sense to, is one possibility to zone parcels that can be used for agricultural, might be used for agricultural as agricultural, and have solar be potentially a permitted use? That is a possibility. I just throw it out there. I think a concern that this committee had 5 years ago, and a concern that's been raised, is just kind of opening up the floodgates and kind of doing something that just lets the genie out of the bottle in terms of all residential. I'll say that the fact that you've addressed some of the minimum size considerations, I think that's something that we were concerned about years ago, because I think the proposal at that time was what, I1, I2, even R30 and R4, I mean, really small parcels. So, you've heard kind of some of our questions and concerns. I'm going to look to our planner, Mr. Coleman, in terms of what suggestions you might have, because I think we need a little time to process this potentially.
I think while you all process it, we can begin to take a look at the regulations that are being proposed, and obviously report back to you at your next meeting.
Yeah.
But I think that's, you all can process it and see where you are for your next meeting, and we'll work on the technical side.
Okay. Anything else? I'm just looking around the room. Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
has went very well, and I appreciate everybody's time and very constructive comments, and we're looking forward to working with you on the next steps.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you can leave.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure.
Nope, you are welcome to,
I'm happy to
you're
stay.
welcome, you're welcome to stay, but you don't have to, so.
Oh, thank you
Yep,
so much.
yep.
Once again, I
Yep,
appreciate everyone's
yep,
time.
yep.
You will.
Talk soon.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on short notice, so thank you for that. Yeah.
We're just down the street.
Yeah, I know.
It's so simple.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well, the good news is we're not that far into our agenda, and a lot of the items on the agenda are more placeholders, and I wasn't really planning to spend a lot of time because we don't have a lot of updates. So I think we can get through things fairly quickly. Sustainable CT recertification. Actually, I'll let John give the update on that.
That will be the first assignment for the new environmental planner.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on his comment, we actually did a little bit of work with the fellows that were assigned to us. I drafted a document to kind of get at the equity piece that's now required. It's kind of the Trees for Bloomfield project. It will need some modifications. So we've got kind of, I think, a start. But if we can get the planner or the new sustainable CT environmental planner, if we can get the new environmental planner on board, we can start working on it now, and we've got, I think, a pretty good path to getting it done. So the equity piece is sort of a big piece of it. Go ahead. You don't have a question? You're up next.
Batter's case.
Okay, so stay tuned, but we've started. Did you want to say something, David? You look like you do.
The intern last summer found a lot of documents, right?
Yes.
For this. Do we have any idea what kind of points those documents lead to?
I did not.
Yeah, I think I think it's 200 you need for bronze. I think she had 45 on hand before I did the narrative. And then there were a couple of things related to Trees for Bloomfield that would get us more points. So I'm guessing we were like a third of the way there, but that was with documents she had.
Right.
We still need to upload a lot of things, and it's more having somebody dedicated as the point person that can pull all that together. I mean, that's really what we need. I mean, I think if we have a staff person whose part of their job is we'll get there for April without a problem.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. And we made a start, which is something we haven't done in a while, so that's good.
Before you move on, Madam Chair, if I could, I left one item off my report, and that is we have finally, and we've been dragging our feet as well, working with the developer of Ryfield Huddle and the improvements to Loslet Park. The original proposed improvements was a stone dust path trail that was determined subsequently that it would not work because of location and slope, and basically would erode out immediately. The engineering division prepared a proposed alternative, which was a parking area about 100 feet into the park, right near where the common gardens are, for about 8 spaces, plus a kiosk that would have a information about the park and a map of the trails that are in the park. And we and we have to get approval from DEP to do that. I wrote a letter to the commissioner about a week and a half ago, and basically within a half an hour of them receiving it, they emailed me back. The commissioner was not in town, but their staff said that they would get back to us when that staff got back in town, and they did. And at the beginning of this week on Monday, myself, Dave Malesko, met with, and other members of my staff, met virtually with the DEP staff. And we have a road forward. They are asking for a significant amount of updated information and new information, which we're going to pull together as quickly as we can and get it onto them so they can then process it. The developer is very eager to get it done because that's part of his requirements to get a final closeout. And he wants to get a final closeout and have his bond his bond released. He's ready to go as soon as we can get sign off from DEP. My sense is it'll probably take us 3 to 4 weeks to get that. But at least the process has been initiated and we see an end date.
And they want updated information, but do they seem receptive?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I mean, that's the key. It's like,
Yep.
they like what's being proposed in terms of park
The
improvements.
staff we talked to seem to be, yes.
Okay, good.
So,
Excellent.
so when the maps are being considered for the trails that are there, can they offer the trails beyond La Salette? So you go through the 4-5 farm and to the Stout farm and into Penwood? Because that, I think, is the long-range plan here. And to get the seed of that plan really started would be very helpful.
We'll certainly take that under consideration.
Yeah, can I make a
I
comment?
don't want to commit to that, David.
Yeah, can I make a comment? I'm going to make a comment. Chair's prerogative. So when Trop Rock Ridge Land Conservancy got new maps for Hawk Hill Farm, 4-5 Farm, we mapped at the same time La Salette. Okay, so we've mapped all the trail. We have a map with all the trails. We've also identified some of the bigger trees on La Salette as well, because while we were out there with the tree guy, we did it. Kevin was with me. So my hope is that the town is interested in using the same map with some different heading, because then you could have, and I mean, it's up to the town, then you could have the two maps and on the two
Well, I'll
kiosks.
push it even further then. You start in Penwood, you come down to Stoutfield, you come to Doncaster, you go to the 4-5 farm, you go up the 4-5 farm to La Salette, and you go from La Salette down to Philly Park. What an extraordinary opportunity for the town.
True, but we have a map now that we could start with.
Add to it, I'm saying. Get it in the writing.
Thank you for
Makes
that
sense to
input.
me.
Thank you for that input. Okay, so moving on. Let's see, but that's great news. That is very good news, because that's been a long time in the making, so that's great. Nancy, extreme heat webinar, just kind of report out next steps.
Yeah, well, it finally happened on August 6th. We had I don't know, I think maybe a dozen, not counting us, in the audience for the webinar with the library. We had really enthusiastic support from the Bloomfield volunteer ambulance people in particular. The next steps issue, which we've talked about a couple times here, is a review of current town policies. I don't think they're regulations per se, but policies around, I'm going to say behavior, I guess, in situations of prolonged extreme heat. And the areas or the populations that we have listed include public works, the rec department and the camps, sports. And then, there's just to see whether there's an awareness and educational opportunity perhaps about the impact of extreme heat / heat and humidity. Looking at the way the town can send out emergency alerts, and which is, being worked on. And I think we've talked about that, I think, with the Public Safety Committee about making sure that that's as robust as it could be. The representative from Bloomfield Volunteer Ambulance kind of echoed what we'd been thinking, which is that many people who either live in isolation or are elderly or in reduced circumstances do not turn on any air conditioning, don't have it. They're in very hot buildings and rooms all the time. When they might go to respond to a health emergency, they're, distressed to find out how hot the homes are. So these are all the things that we thought we would do next, is kind of look, how are we keeping Bloomfield safe, I guess, is kind of a caption. And I think that also has an equity focus. I know it does. And So that would tie into the sustainable CT recertification. And I think there are a couple items around extreme heat in there that we found also. And not gonna, maybe the climate action task force, the tie in there too, but I don't have a report on that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Neither do I.
Since you have it on
Still on
the
the
agenda,
agenda.
I'm just saying it's something that maybe that's a task force
Right.
job along with CEEC.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that's my update.
Great. Thank you. And I think certainly pursuing those next steps, that's kind of a logical place to go. So that's great. And thank you for doing this. I did bring this, I don't know if you saw this. This is from the Hartford Current's Sunday edition. Doctor to examine heat's impact on mental health. So you may have this. Okay, it's somebody from Harvard Healthcare's Institute of Living. They are conducting 2 5-year studies into how heat impacts mental health, and $3.5 million grant to do the work. So obviously it's in the news a lot, so you are welcome to this. Okay. All right. The next thing, I just wanted to bring this up, artificial turf ban resolution. I think I sent an email out to the committee, just sort of giving you an update. I had attended the governance subcommittee meeting in July, I think it was, just to advocate that there be a ban on artificial turf installation, new and replacement. At that July meeting, the feedback I got from the committee, the council members, was pretty much it seemed that there was a consensus that putting in new turf fields didn't make a lot of sense given the concerns about it and given the expense associated with it, because the Rockwell Park master plan that was originally kind of put together as a proposal, when the question was raised, what's the differential in cost between artificial turf and using going natural? Natural's $2 million less for the project, which is pretty compelling, obviously. Another good reason. The follow-up that the council tasked the town manager with at the July meeting was for the town manager to talk to the superintendent and to find out what the plan, what their feelings were in terms of the existing field at Bloomfield High School, because that field is near the end of its life and, something is going to need to happen. So at this September 2nd meeting, which I was not at because I had a conflict, the manager reported out on that, and I sent you a link to the video. So you got that probably a few days, like last week maybe. And, I think it's at the 3:45 mark. It's like one of the first things early up on the agenda. Personally, I was a little bit concerned about it because the manager, the feedback from the school was like, oh no, we have to do this. We have to replace the field with a new artificial turf field. Director Malesko was at the meeting, kind of advocate, my sense was from the manager kind of listing all the pros of artificial turf, was that was the angle that was looked at, and sort of our views weren't being represented in terms of the committee's views, but the council members pushed back, which I thought was good, because they said, well, what about the health concerns that the CEC raised? And we need to get some of this other information. And I think the proposal or what was being suggested was getting the consultant to sort of look at that, but the consultant is the consultant that kind of is working on artificial turf fields So I'm a bit concerned about bias, to be quite blunt about it. I wanted to bring this all up at the meeting. And I see Councilor Merritt has his hand up, and I think he's on that committee. So I'll sort of yield the floor, but it's kind of like it's good for us to think about what we might want to do as a next step. We kind of passed it off to the council as a recommendation, but I feel like we kind of lost some continuity in terms of the communication here. Councilor
Yes.
Merritt? Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you. I do have some, I'm concerned about it as you are. I was very concerned to hear all the enthusiasm and how they had to have artificial turf. And I think I was very impressed by Kevin's presentation to this group on the concerns he had about the health effects. And I wish he would talk to the Board of Ed, because he's very convincing that this should be taken seriously. And he was especially good at that presentation. And I wonder if you could ask him if he would talk to the Board of Ed, because I'm talking about the Board of Ed, not the football team.
Right.
They are so down that road but the Board of Ed, I think, would be very concerned to hear about the health risks. And I think they've got to get that message. And maybe the entire council should hear Kevin's talk too, because he is very, I don't think anybody wouldn't be concerned after listening to what he says. So is that something that can be arranged?
Yeah, and I mean, Kevin is in the room. He's over in the corner.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
didn't know
No,
that.
that's
But
fine.
I didn't mean to compliment him when he was present. So
Yeah, and I think, John, do you want to say something, John? Yeah.
I'm probably talking out of school, but this discussion has always gone on. My question has always been, who bears the cost?
Yeah.
Is it the community with the cost of maintenance and installation, or is it the residents with the health costs
Yeah.
and the kids?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, that doesn't even get to the other environmental aspects of it, in terms of like, this stuff is not recycled. I mean, we went through the whole, we've gone through the list a couple times of like all of the issues with it.
yeah.
Another possibility is trying to arrange, and it's very doable, someone with expertise on kind of the health risk, to see if that would be more compelling. Ann Hulick, who is a nurse, former lobbyist, she's a registered nurse. She was the person who was the the director of Kinetic Clean Water Action. Super knowledgeable. She's the one that got pushed through a lot of the PFAS regulations at the state level. She's just retired, and she helped kind of line up speakers. I don't know if getting somebody like that in and kind of like, sitting somebody like that down would be useful. Joe, your hand is still up. Do you have?
Well, I want to keep talking.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I really think Kevin did a very good job, and I wouldn't. He seems to have enough expertise on his own, but if he wants to bring somebody else in, fine. But I just thought, after listening to him, my mind was swayed considerably. So I suspect that same thing would happen to the Board of Ed and to the town council. So if he would speak on that issue in both places, I think it would be very, very helpful. Because certainly what the jocks think is way the other way. So I'm concerned not only about the high school field, but also the new one that is planned to be artificial turf. I found out on what's the new park going in over on
Rockwell.
Rockwell, yeah, and I was surprised about that, because we.
Well, that and Councilor Mira, I mean, I was surprised that on the September meeting that kind of came back up, and the question that was directed at Dave Malesko was, well, the question was like, what were the plans for Rockwell? And it was like, oh, it was proposed as artificial turf. What didn't follow was but there was a question about was natural turf, natural grass considered? The answer was no. Get a cost estimate of the differential. That was done. And then in terms of doing additional follow-up, that did not happen. So, but that information, to your point, was not reiterated. In July, former Mayor Wong made the comment about, we just shouldn't even think about artificial turf at Rockwell because we don't have it now.
Yeah.
But she's gone, and it's good to kind of maybe re-educate the council on this.
Yeah, and I just think the health risk is by far the biggest concern, even bigger than cost, because that'll give you the business about you don't have the maintenance costs, you don't have to mow the field, that kind of thing. But that's just not nearly as important, I don't think, as health risk.
Right.
But people don't know that, and we really don't have a good feel for the long-term health risks. Any information on that would be helpful, I'm sure. But anyway, I just want to make that point.
Appreciate
I think
that.
there's some education that's necessary.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
In something you sent out, I think the actual dollars, I thought, if I read correctly, were more for the artificial turf.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When the proposal was done,
And
it was like a $13.2 million project with artificial turf,
Right.
and without it was like 11.2.
yeah,
So it's 2 million less.
So I don't know how that transfers into taking out a turf
Right.
at the high school. This was for a different setting, but
Right.
knowing the dollars is really, really important. And
That's the and if the
Yeah,
if
but
that,
then they plug in the cost of maintenance, where the artificial turf went out because you don't have to mow it.
but you also are if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, my understanding is you're supposed to be disinfecting it, you have to be watering it down, you have to make sure it's cool, that it's playable. Yeah, special machines, you need to purchase special machines. I mean, there are costs associated with maintaining that surface.
Yeah. Okay.
And and I'm sputtering now. I'll stay on my soapbox for a moment and then I'll get off. I have younger friends with children, young adolescent children, and they're concerned when their kids go and play. They don't want their kids playing on artificial turf fields, soccer, and their kids come home and they have to like strip in the garage, to put it bluntly, so they're not tracking this stuff through the house.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Microplastics. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, So anyway, I didn't plan to spend a lot of time on it, but obviously we need to revisit, and maybe it's Kevin
Well, it's kind of urgent
making a
because
guest appearance. Yeah.
they have to make up their mind pretty quick. So that's why a decision that has to be made now.
Yep. Okay. So at this point, the other items under old business, we need to come back to them. I wasn't really planning of spending a lot of time on them today. I would like to move to new business, and I want to make sure we get to Sunday, in terms of announcements. And we do want to, we do need to authorize spending some money from our budget on that, just to have it on the record. The tree ordinance, we need to revise it. Can you just speak briefly about where it's lacking from your experience with the applications where you haven't been able to do anything with it?
The real lacking is when there's a significant cut. How do we compensate for that? Whether they, particularly if they're specimen and heritage trees, and there's a gap there that I find concerning, because we've had a couple of applications where there's been some significant tree cutting, and we haven't been able to compensate. It's not a simple solution. We've got to find the right ratio in terms of replacement for existing. Otherwise, it could become a real financial hurdle for the applicant. In terms of if you take down, let's say a 20 diameter specimen tree and you say you have to replace 5 4-inch diameters for that. And you had, a dozen specimen trees on the property you took down, that's a fairly significant bite in terms of where it's going to be done, either on-site or off-site. So we do not have a solution or recommendation for that, but that's what we'll be working on. And I'm going to ask the environmental planner to spend a fair amount of time on that as well, so that we can come up with a balance that achieves the preservation that we want, or the replacement that we want, but does not become basically a insurmountable financial burden for the individual or organization taking the trees down. And I want to do it sooner than later because, before it gets away from us.
Okay, so that would be something along with sustainable CT work that's high on the list. Okay, good, thank you. The solar regulations, Bob, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but let's get it on the table.
Excuse me one second. I
Yeah.
have to be at a 6 o'clock meeting.
Go.
So,
Thank you very much. So Bob has been proposing, and basically, let's circulate this and we'll put it on the agenda, but why don't you speak very briefly? Yeah.
Yeah, it's solar regulations, but it's really requirements in our regulations for new construction to require developers to look seriously if it's cost effective to put solar on their new buildings. And having necessary waivers, whether you have shade or whatever other reasons that it's not cost effective. But anyway, I've got a couple, 2 different starting points.
Okay, yep, great. No, he's got him, I think. Yep, yep. Yeah, yeah,
That's about it.
okay, great, and
If everybody looks at this
yeah.
for another time and to make comments.
We will put it on next month. This is something that has been carried along on our agenda, and it always was in tandem with, we want to see where we are in terms of our POCD, sort of the what we are looking for in terms of renewable energy and solar in the POCD. They're in the they're still, we thought we'd be done by now, but they're still rewriting it. But now let's get this on the agenda and work it now.
An advantage of this going this way is there won't be pressure to put solar on farmland if we can put it on buildings.
Right, and you've got kind of the caveats around there that you're not looking to take down swaths of trees if it doesn't, if that doesn't make sense. That's where the waivers come in. Yeah.
Are you handing something out to us or what?
Do you have something? Can you share? Yep. Just pass around. Yep. Kevin will help. Okay, so that's very quick. I want to go to Sunday events in Bloomfield. And before everybody, Claudia will give an update on that. And then I want us to make a motion to authorize CEC spending up to $350, okay, for kind of materials and things she needs for this. But go ahead and talk about what you're doing here.
This will be 30 seconds. There's a new holiday or environmental focus on the sun, similar to Earth Day. We've all heard of Earth Day. All these great programs have come up through Earth Day, planting things and so forth. So now we have Sunday. It's on September 21st. In Bloomfield, we are doing a little program on September 20th. And at that program, we will hand out these flyers, which invite people to go to Central State Connecticut University for Sunday. Okay, so Saturday at 9:30 in the morning, I will have my electric car in the town parking lot, and I do have permission. And anyone who wants to look at it and ask questions, and people have a lot of questions, I'm always answering questions, we'll have that there. Free coffee, donuts. So if you've ever wanted to take a close-up look at electric vehicle, come and look at our car. Also, Bob is going to come and he's going to be there available to talk about all the things they're doing at Seabury for renewable energy. And if anyone shows up, we have sandwich boards out that will be out. We have a little thing in the newspaper, but I have not gone nuts because I don't have a budget, except for this $300, to, tell everyone in town about it. So, and it's not a panel discussion. It's a couple of your neighbors bringing some information to the town parking lot on a Saturday morning. Stop by, have a cup of coffee. If it's 15 people, we'll be happy. If it's a lot of people, we'll be even happier. But we don't really think we can do much more than that.
Right. It was this was brought to us during the summer. A little bit of it is capacity in terms of organizing something really big. Part of it is to raise awareness. And you're also doing a reading at Wittenberry McMahon, so mention that, please.
I'm reading to preschoolers at the library on Wednesday, a book about the sun.
So I think that's nice too, with BP, with.
The library loves the idea.
Yeah. We can, after we do. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you, Nancy. So Nancy's saying, can we have like our flyers and let people know about Shred Day? Yeah? That's great. Okay, very good. Can someone move to for CEC to spend up to $350 for materials for
the sandwich boards,
for-
and I'm writing them in such a way that they could be reused in another year.
and coffee and donuts?
Oh, I'm donating that.
Well,
I always donate the food.
okay, but anyway, up to 350, and if you spend 300, that's fine. Can I have a motion? Second? Okay, Dave and Bob, okay. Everyone in favor? Aye?
I,
Yeah,
I
okay. All right, unanimous. Okay, great. And actually, thank you, Nancy. If we could have flyers just the flyers for Shred and E-Recycling Day available
at
too?
the Sunday.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can give me anything you want me to hand out.
Right, and yeah, photo contest.
I
Photo
hope
con-
it's a big crowd.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so
I'm thinking of that.
the only other, the comment I will make about Tree City USA and Trees for Bloomfield right now, and I want to spend more time next month on this, is Sharon Mann's been doing a great job in terms of organizing a smaller tree giveaway, which is going on now. And in fact, I think the trees will be picked up by homeowners and some will be delivered on Saturday morning. And so that's going on. That's being funded by Cummings in town through the Arbor Day Foundation. And then good news, we got this nice grant from the DEP. I think it's DEP for the right-of-way tree inventory. Public Works got that. And anytime you get a state grant through DEP, there's a lot of back and forth in terms of kind of getting all the contractual pieces. But that happened, I think, within the past month and a half. So the town is ready to kind of get going on that. I think CEC has some minor responsibilities along the way in terms of getting articles out to the public, kind of promoting so that the public is aware of what's going on and has the potential for some input in terms of, what might ultimately go in the right of way in terms of tree planting. So stay tuned. That project will unfold over the next, I don't know, probably 6 months, something like that. Okay. That's it unless anybody has anything else. Shred Day is November 8th, 9 to noon, and it's going to be at the high school parking lot again. Yep, it's B. B under announcements. Yep. Yep.
I'm sorry, when is it?
November 8th.
Okay,
Yep. Yep, great. Okay, at this point, have I covered everything, I hope?
you covered everything in the agenda.
I know. It's like, is there anything that I was planning on covering that I've forgotten to mention? Okay,
I say no. You said, yeah.
I have to
public
ask for
comment.
what? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any public comment?
Yes. If I have to move my chair.
Any public comment? Is that a yes?
Yes, for me, because I want to speak on behalf of Lorenzo Jones, who had to leave.
Okay,
Only to just raise the awareness that we do want to press for an ag commission, and that is in the POCD.
Good.
More clarity around what is a farm, what do we do now, how many designated farms do we have, how do we encourage people to farm, what does it mean to save farmland? You have a sign, Claudia. What does that mean? So I just want to say that because I don't know if Lorenzo was going to say that or not, but he owns a farm, Chicks Ahoy Farm, down the road here, and also some other property, et cetera. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a comment.
That's great. Yep,
Thank you.
okay. So now, David, motion to adjourn? Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. So 6:07. Thank you very much. You got it?